Hello, 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 and welcome back to Rhetoric with Shakia. I'm Shakia, and in this episode, we are going to continue our Love Island USA season 7 commentary. We're talking about episode 30. Oh my goodness, when I tell you, I am so freaking happy and excited and giddy and all of the freaking synonyms that have to go along with it because I am. We see the conversations from the night prior. So we see that Amaya comes back from the speakeasy. She's super giddy because she was just in there with Brian, and we know what happened in the speakeasy. They shared a kiss and all of that. And so the folks, the islanders, are winding down, taking off their makeup, doing their nightly showering, taking their nightly showers, etc. Okay? You know that they'll show the couples in bed and the single islanders in bed, and it'll say Olandria, Elan, Brian and Amaya, and it said Nick and Sierra. And so I was like, dang, she's still there? Because remember, this information came out about her regarding her usage of, in recent history too, her usage of a racial slur. And so I was like, oh, she's still there. That's interesting. But then the next day happens and they wake up, right? Obviously, the next day happens. And then you see the boys are all surrounding Nick and they're having a conversation. Ian, the narrator, he lets us know Sierra has left the villa due to some personal reasons. Personal reasons? I just want to know what it was like when the producer came and said, Sierra, come here, please. Yeah, you come here. Get out of the villa. No, just kidding. Also, listen, even though I don't agree with Sierra's language and whatnot, let's not participate. And I know I don't have to tell you this, but for those who might not understand, we're not participating in online bullying. We're not participating in bullying for any of the islanders. We're not doing that. This is a show. And yes, Sierra said some stuff in the real world. Let's give her, her time to process and make sense of this, etc. Just like folks shouldn't be bullying Shelly and Olandria either. Okay, so Nick is like, look, I'm not really sure what to do. This was my strongest connection. Brian says something about, yeah, man, like curveballs just being thrown. And Pepe is like, it's not easy. These are feelings. These are real feelings. So they're surrounding him. They're supporting him. And then he goes and he has a conversation with, now I think I jumped ahead in the episode. Bear with me. He goes and he has a conversation with Olandria. They are sitting on, I believe it's the orange couch or sofa, and they're chatting, and she says, look, I just want you to know that I am here for you. Whatever you need, I got you. And he says, I'm thankful that you have my back. And he says, well, if I'm going to continue this experience, I want to do it with somebody who I trust, who does have my back, and who I'm attracted to, and who I have a good time with. He says something like that. And he's talking about Olandria. And Olandria is sitting there, ever so poised. She's sitting there, she's listening, and then he starts asking her questions about Taylor. Nick asked Olandria, how do you feel about Taylor and Clark? How do you feel about their connection? And Olandria said, look, I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them. I'm glad he found a connection in Clark. However, I didn't like how he did me, which is what America has been saying. We are not upset that he found a connection with Clark. It was that he did Olandria dirty. But anyway, so Nick is like, okay. And so Nick says, well, how do you feel about Taylor and Clark being placed in 10th place in the polls from the previous episodes? And Olandria said, without skipping a beat, I feel great. And they start cracking up and laughing. And Olandria said, oh, you thought I was going to give you a PR answer? And she said, no, I'm a real biat, da 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 da. And she said, and so they're just cracking up. And it was such a cute moment. And something else that was cute, even though I am not Taylor's biggest fan because of what he did, but sometimes we got to learn how to move on. We see that he is preparing a date for Clark. Peep game. When he was coupled up with Olandria, Ace pretty much had to school him on, hey, take care of your lady, show her that you're into her, etc. But guess what? This time around, Taylor was able to do it all on his own. Why is that? Because he's actually feeling Clark. That's why. That's the main difference. So anyway, he's preparing this little breakfast picnic at the villa because they still didn't give them dates outside of the villa. We got a little sprinkle of dates here and there throughout the season. So these islanders, they got to do what they got to do, which is again why I don't understand why America voted Ace as least, or they voted him so unfavorably, and when it came to that category of boyfriend material, because Eighth has been putting in effort from day one, specifically with Shelly, doing as much as he could around the villa with what he had. But anyway, because I don't like how y'all talk about Ace or Shelly. I don't like that. And as much as we're gonna get to this in a minute. As much as I love talking about Nick and Olandria, I love Ace and Shelly together. Let them be, okay? So speaking of Ace, Ace is helping Taylor with his date for Clark. He's gathering the ingredients for the food, and oh my God, Taylor is making iced coffee. He filled that cup up to the over the brim, to the very, very top. I'm like, sir, you don't need all that ice. But anyway, they're prepping the breakfast, and Taylor is preparing the space, and then Amaya comes over, and Amaya says, "Stall." I mean, Taylor says to Amaya, "Go stall Clark." So she runs upstairs. She's out of breath, and she's like, "Clark." Hey. And Clark is like, "Hey, girl." And so she's like, "Come over here, sit with me for a minute." So Clark sits down with her, and Amaya goes, "So what's your favorite color?" And Clark is looking at her like, what is going on? And Clark answered, she said black. And Amaya said, really? That's interesting. And she said, so then Amaya goes, so what would be your perfect date? And Clark says, a picnic. And Amaya goes, really? It was actually cute. It was cute. And then finally Ace comes up with the roll of paper towel, and he is making the noise dun, 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 like a trumpet. That's a trumpet, right? Whatever, the instrument. Dun, 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 dun. And he requests Clark to follow him, and he leads her downstairs. And Taylor is on the blanket near his little setup with the flower in his mouth, coached by Ace. And he and Clark, start the conversation, and Taylor lets her know that he had a dream about horses, and he had a dream about being back at the rodeo, and he misses it. And he asked her, and this is where he lost me. He asked her, are you ready for a hard knock life? Sir, don't, we're not signing up for no hard knock life. And so Clark is like, I guess we'll see. She's like, I'm country, but I'm not that kind of country. And I thought that was cute. And so they're talking. It'll be interesting to see how they progress outside of the villa, whether or not Clark is actually down for Taylor. We know that, or we can see based off of what's being aired, what's being shown, that Taylor is absolutely smitten with Clark. And if he didn't do Olandria dirty, I would actually be excited for him and his connection. But because he did what he did, I just take it as, okay, cool. So next we see Huda and Chris have a conversation, and they're talking about making jokes. And so Chris is throwing out all these dad jokes, and surprisingly, or maybe not so, but it was surprising to me, Huda was familiar with most of them. And she's like, dude, you're not funny. And then she did that brother thing, which I don't know how I feel about that. Brother. I'm like, where is that coming from? What is this about, Huda? What's going on here? But anyway, they're talking, and she goes, when they first start this conversation, she says, I'm surprised that none of the other guys pulled me for a kiss in the challenge. And Chris looks at her and he goes, why? And she goes, because we're still open. And he's like, yeah, but we're growing. Like, ma'am, calm down. Calm down. You have a connection with somebody who you say you like. You don't need validation from anybody else. Focus on you and focus on your connection. So when she said that, I was like, damn, Huda, you are something else, ma'am. You are something else. Okay. So they're talking, they're getting to know, they're continuing to just bond with each other. And again, for what it is, it's cute. Moving on, we have Pepe and Iris. They're also bonding. And Iris asks, "Do you look more like your mom?" He says, "Yeah." And so they're just talking about their parents and growing up and bonding over their parents' choice of music and whatnot. And we also see Ace and Shelly converse, and they're going a little bit deeper this episode, talking about their upbringing and some of the obstacles that they faced during their youth. And it was a nice moment, not the obstacles obviously that they talked about, but having these two connect on a deeper level. They seem to really be progressing. Again, I do not support any hate for Shelly or for Ace. We also see Amaya chatting it up with a few of the guys this episode, Elan, Brian, and Zach. Each of them are vying for her attention. I guess I would say I enjoyed her conversation with Brian the most. That one felt the most authentic. It felt the most just genuine. They found out that their families are from the same town back in DR and the Dominican Republic, and it was just cute. And they were talking about certain things in New York, like the rats and whatnot. And so cute conversations. Again, these are all cute. This episode absolutely felt like a Love Island episode because the couples are actually getting to know each other. They're having fun with each other. At one point, we see that they're playing some game, some game in like the little garden area. And then, of course, so the ball flies up to the top balcony, and Zach and Amaya are there. And guess who goes to retrieve the ball? Elan. And you know, he is just nosy. He's always just lurking about, listening, and learning. So he can take that information and use it to his advantage. But overall, it was just a nice vibe. It felt lighthearted. It felt easygoing. Nick and Olandria go by the dock and they have a conversation. They have a one-on-one. Nick says, I would be interested in still having each other's back. I think he's choosing his words very carefully. I think his questions at the beginning of the episode when they were on the orange couch, when he was asking Olandria about her feelings toward Clark and Taylor, I think he was really trying to gauge where Olandria is at this point with Taylor. And based off of her responses, it seems that our girl is finally off that train. Thank you. And I think Nick is here for it, but even still, he's trying to be mindful about how he's moving forward. Obviously, Sierra just left the villa, and I think he just really respects Olandria. And so Olandria said, I would be interested in exploring to see where this goes. I feel like the last time we did, our heads weren't in it. We were clouded by our other connections, me with Taylor, you with Sierra. And Nick, at some point, he goes, yeah, and I can remember if this was before or after the recoupling. And he goes, yeah, the respect for Taylor and your respect for Sierra. I think Nick was down to really explore the last time, but because Olandria pulled back because she was still so heavily invested in Taylor, he opted not to. And during that infamous Casa recoupling, he chose Sierra. Do I think he likes Sierra? Yes. Do I think he really likes Olandria? Yes. And I'm here for it. So Olandria says that her vision was clouded before, pretty much. And if they were to explore again, she would give it all she has. She would actually try this time to see if there was anything there. And then the recoupling happens. Shelly goes up first and she has this lovely speech regarding Ace. That's who she chooses. And so they couple up, and Huda gives a lovely speech about Chris, and they couple up, and Iris gives a speech about Pepe. I like Pepe. Obviously, Pepe is handsome. Okay. Pepe is handsome. And I know I'm not Pepe's type, but Pepe is handsome. Pepe has a very particular type. Okay. And, but Pepe's handsome. But what I love about him is even though we know Pepe has a type, I love how he treats all of the women in the villa, especially Olandria. Do you remember that, again, the infamous Casa recoupling? And when Olandria was saved, he walked over to her and grabbed her hand and guided her toward her seat, toward Nick. And then Nick took it from there. He reached out his hand. I just love the way they treat her, okay? But I really appreciate Pepe for respecting the women and being such a gentleman. At least that's what we are shown as the viewers. And so I'm here for Pepe. However, I'm not here for Pepe and Iris. I don't see it. I think Pepe still wants to explore with Hannah, and we know Hannah is no longer in the villa. And so at this point, I'd like to see Pepe go and explore where his heart really is, even though I really do enjoy having Pepe on the show. He's supportive, he's respectful, he's funny, he peeps stuff, okay? Talk about clocking it. Pepe clocks it, and I'm here for it. But I'm not here for him and Iris. So Iris gives a speech. Whatever she said, I couldn't even tell you because I don't really know. And then my girl, our girl gets up on Landria because she was exploring Zach, and it was an okay connection. He was trying to show her that he was gentlemanly and he could take care of her and he could provide. And she said, "Look, I don't need you to provide financial." This is earlier in the episode. "I don't need you to provide financial support. I can take care of myself." That's all done because he said, "What do you look for? Because you're really independent." And he said, I'm independent as well." And she said, "I want somebody who can provide that emotional support, who has my back, etc." And he's like, "I absolutely can do that. I can take care of you." And he goes, "I can also fix things. I can fix things around the house, which I'm here for. Please come and build these cabinets that I don't want to build. Please, because this is why they are still sitting here." But anyway, I digress. So back to the recoupling. So Olandria, she gets up and she says that she wants to couple up with the boy who has really seen her, and she values their bond and she values their connection and their friendship. And she said, I loved him since we met. Now I know she probably means as friends because again they do have a friendship, but I was like, oh, Olandria. Olandria says, "I loved him from the moment I met him. I'm super excited to spend the rest of my days with this person." And then she says, "The boy I would like to couple up with is Nick. Nicolandria Hive." Listen, because even I wavered a little bit and I was like, I know, call it Delulu, but you still saw this spark. You still knew that these two people had potential to connect. We were not Delulu. It's just we saw it. We clocked it from literally day one. The chemistry between these two. And they started off as friends. Okay. Then they went to forbidden lovers. And now they get to finally explore. I'm so excited. I can't tell you enough how excited I am for these two to finally have an opportunity. And for people, because I know somebody's gonna say, Olandria is not being a girl's girl. How can she do that when her best friend in the villa, one of her best friends in the villa, Ciara, was with Nick? And now Ciara's not there. How is she gonna just go after Nick? Because number one, this is Love Island. You get to explore. Number two, Ciara is no longer in the villa. Number three, and probably most importantly, Ciara stood behind Taylor to support him in staying instead of being dumped from the villa. And you might say, but Nick stood behind Taylor. Yes, Nick did. We know that Nick and Taylor are friends. It was more hurtful to have Ciara stand behind him. Olandria said it last episode. It was like a dagger to her heart. So that whole girl code, blah, blah, blah. They're doing what needs to be done for Love Island. This is the premise of the show. I loved the recoupling speeches. I mean, this was such a good freaking episode. This is what we have honestly been waiting for. Episode 21, the end of it. No, the end of episode 20 And then episode 21, where we get to see Nick and Olandria go on their date. And then we have episode 28. That felt like it wasn't a Nick and Olandria thing, but it felt like a Love Island episode. And then this episode 30, feels like a Love Island episode. This is the premise of the show, people. The plot has returned. We might be late in the game, but the plot has returned. And I need us to lock in. I need us to lock all the way in. So when Olandria says Nick, and he, dabs up all the guys, and then as he makes his way over to her, he's skipping and taps it, clicks his little heels together, and then he hugs Olandria. And then they sit down, and then I think Ariana asks, how do you feel about this? How does this feel for you, Nick? And Nick says, this feels familiar, because remember, they were coupled up before, even though it was 24 hours. And he said, I just want to be here to support her, and I want to take care of her. And I want to take care of her. Take care of, yes, yes. And Olandria, let him take care of you. And he said, I will make her bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches every morning. I'm here for it. I am so here for it. Okay. After the recoupling, so, okay, we know that. Oh, so when Nick makes his way over to Olandria, they hug, and you see Taylor dancing, and he's like, that's my dog. Sir, shut up. But yeah, be happy for them. But hush. We know that Clark chooses Taylor in the recoupling, and Amaya chooses Brian. Let's see how these connections play out. And after the recoupling and Ariana leaves, Ariana, by the way, honey, these looks that she is serving, the makeup, the literal looks, she is, every time she steps in that villa or on the screen, I'm like, oh my God, stunning. Like, stunning. I'm here for it all. Anyway, after the recoupling ceremony, of course, Nick pulls Olandria again. They go back over to the dock. Oh, I forgot to tell y'all, the first time they went over to the dock, Nick cleaned off the seat, sat on it first, made sure it was good, and then he let his queen sit down. Okay. And he also, so now they're in a couple together. They both talk about wanting to really give this 100% this time, and to be focused on what could potentially come from this couple. I was going to say union, because in my mind, I already jumped ahead, but we're not going to do that, because we know with this show, it changes day by day, minute by minute. Anyway, at one point during their conversation, Nick, of course, grabs her hand. He kisses her hand because he is a gentleman. And earlier in the episode, he told Olandria, he said, I feel like you make me manlier, and I feel like I have to step up when I'm around you, which I love, because remember, Taylor had an issue, right, with that. And he says, Taylor, one of the reasons why he chose Clark is because he said, she makes me feel like a kid. And Olandria was like, how old are you? Y'all remember that episode? Anyway, so Nick says, you make me feel manlier, and I want to step up when I'm around you. And he says, I feel like I can bring out that silly side, that goofy side that you have. And I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I think it's true. And I want it to happen. And I am rooting for them. And I am still part of this Nicolandria Hive. I just can't get out of it, because I don't want to. It's a beautiful place to be. And no negativity over here. Okay? It is a beautiful place to be. So they commit essentially to giving it a try and really exploring this connection the right way this time, as Olandria put it. So, what were your thoughts about this episode, episode 30? A real Love Island episode, a recoupling with speeches and games during, just games in the villa with the Islanders, lightheartedness, people connecting and bonding, and all of the things. Oh my gosh. This was Love Island, and I love it. I'm here for it. But anyway, as I was saying, what are your thoughts about this episode? Who do you think, because there's a dumping that's going to happen. Who do you think will be dumped from the villa next? We had to vote in the polls, and the results are going to be revealed on Tuesday. Let me know in the comments who you think will be dumped. And who are you rooting for? Are you also rooting for Nicolandria and Ace and Shelly? Because that's who I'm rooting for. And to round out my top three, Amaya and Brian. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications so you can continue to get more recaps and breakdowns like this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I am so glad you are here. I appreciate you. And until next time, bye for now.